He Fell in Love with His Wife by Edward Payson Rowe. Chapter 5. Mrs. Mumpson Takes Up Her Burdens. The next morning Holcroft awoke early. The rising sun flooded his plain little room with mellow light. It was impossible to give way to dejection in that radiance, and hope, he scarcely knew why, sprung up in his heart. He was soon dressed, and having kindled the kitchen fire, went out on the porch. There had been a change in the wind during the night, and now it blew softly from the south. The air was sweet with the indefinable fragrance of spring. The ethereal notes of bluebirds were heard on every side. Migratory robins were feeding in the orchard, whistling and calling their noisy congratulations on arriving at old haunts. The frost was already oozing from the ground, but the farmer welcomed the mud, knowing that it indicated a long advance toward ploughing and planting time. He bared his head to the sweet, warm air and took long, deep breaths. "If this weather holds," he muttered, "I can soon put in some early potatoes on that warm hillside yonder. Yes, I can stand even her for the sake of being on the old place in mornings like this. The weather will be getting better every day, and I can be out of doors more. I'll have a stove in my room tonight. I would last night if the old airtight hadn't given out completely. I'll take it to town this afternoon and sell it for old iron. Then I'll get a brand new one and put it in my room. They can't follow me there, and they can't follow me outdoors, so perhaps I can live in peace and work most of the time." Thus he was muttering to himself, as lonely people so often do, when he felt that someone was near. Turning suddenly, he saw Jane half hidden by the kitchen door. Finding herself observed, the girl came forward and said in her brief, monotonous way, "Mother will be down soon. If you'll show me how you want the coffee and things, I guess I can learn." "I guess you'll have to, Jane. There'll be more of a chance of your teaching your mother than of her teaching you, I fear. But we'll see. It's a strange thing that people can't see what's sensible and best for 'em when they see so much." The child made no reply, but watched him intently as he measured out and then ground half a cup of coffee. "The first thing you to do," he began kindly, "is to fill the kettle with water drawn fresh from the well. Never make coffee or tea with water that's been boiled 2 or 3 times. Now I'll give the kettle a good rinsing so as to make sure you start with it clean." Having accomplished this, he filled the vessel at the well and placed it on the fire, remarking as he did so, "Your mother can cook a little, can't she?" "I suppose so," Jane replied. "When Father was living, Mother said she kept a girl. Since then we visited round, but she'll learn. And if she can't, I can." "What on earth? Well, there's no use of you talking. When the water boils, bubbles up and down, call me. I suppose you and your mother can get the rest of breakfast?" "Oh, good morning, Mrs. Mumpson. I was just showing Jane about the coffee." "You two can go on and do the rest, but don't touch the coffee till the kettle boils, and then I'll come in and show you my way, and if you please, I don't wish it any other way." "Oh, certainly, began Mrs. Mumpson, but Holcroft waited to hear no more. "She's a woman," he muttered, "and I'll say nothing rude or ugly to her, but I shan't listen to her talk half a minute when I can help myself, and if she won't do anything but talk, well, we'll see. A few hours in the dairy will show whether she can use anything besides her tongue." As soon as they were alone, Jane turned sharply on her mother and said, "Now you've got to do something to help. At Cousin Lemuel's and other places they wouldn't let us help. Anyhow, they wouldn't let me. He expects us both to work and pays you for it. I tell you again, he won't let us stay here unless we do. I won't go visiting round with any more, feeling like a stray cat in every house I go to. You've got to work and talk less." "Why, Jane, how you talk!" "I talked sense. Come, help me get breakfast." "Do you think that's a proper way for a child to address a parent?" "No matter what I think. Come and help. You'll soon know what he thinks if we keep breakfast waiting." "Well, I'll do such menial work until he gets a girl, and then he shall learn that he can't expect one with such respecterble connections. Hope I never see any of 'em again. interrupted Jane shortly. And then she relapsed into silence, while her mother rambled on in her characteristic way, making singularly inept efforts to assist in the task before them. As Holcroft rose from milking a cow, he found Jane beside him. A ghost could not have come more silently, and again her stealthy ways gave him an unpleasant sensation. "Kettle is boiling," she said, and was gone. He shook his head and muttered, "Queer tribe, these Mumpsons. I've only to get an odd fish of a girl to help, and I'll have something like a menagerie in the house." He carried his pails of foaming milk to the dairy, and then entered the kitchen. "Only a minute," he began hastily, seeking to forestall the widow. "Yes, the kettle's boiling all right. First scald out the coffee pot, put 3/4 of a cup of ground coffee on the pot. Break an egg into it, so. Pour the egg and coffee, half a cup of cold water, and stir it all well, this way. Next pour in about a pint of boiling water from the kettle. Set the pot on the stove and let it, the coffee I mean, cook 20 minutes. Remember, not less than 20 minutes. I'll be back to breakfast by that time. Now you know just what I want my coffee, don't you?" Looking at Jane. Jane nodded, but Mrs. Mumpson began, "Oh, certainly, certainly. Boil an egg 20 minutes, half a cup of cold water, and—" "I know," interrupted Jane. "I can always do as you did." Holcroft again escaped the barn, and eventually returned with a deep sigh. "I'll have to face a good deal of her music this morning," he thought, "but I shall at least have a good cup of coffee to brace me." Mrs. Mumpson did not abandon the suggestion that grace should be said. She never abandoned anything, but the farmer, in accordance with his purpose to be civil, yet paid no attention to her obtrusive ways, gave no heed to her hint. He thought Jane looked apprehensive, and soon learned the reason. His coffee was at least hot, but seemed exceedingly weak. "I hope now that is just right," said Mrs. Mumpson complacently. "And, feeling sure that it was made just to suit you, I filled the coffee pot full from the kettle. We can drink what we want for breakfast, and then the rest can be set aside until dinner time and warmed over. Then you'll have it just to suit you for the next meal, and we at the same time will be practicing economy. It shall now be my great aim to help you economize. And of course many hands can work, but the great thing to be considered is a caretaker, one who by thoughtfulness and employment of her mind will make the labor of others effective." During this speech, Holcroft could only stare at the woman. The rapid motion of her thin jaw seemed to fascinate him, and he was in perplexity over not merely her rapid utterance, but also her queries. Had she maliciously spoiled the coffee? Or didn't she know any better? "I can't make her out," he thought. "But she shall learn that I have a will of my own." And he quietly rose, took the coffee-pot, and poured its contents out of doors. Then went through the whole process of making his favorite beverage again, saying coldly, "Jane, you had better watch close this time. I don't wish anyone to touch the coffee-pot but you." Even Mrs. Mumpson was a little abashed by his manner, but when he resumed his breakfast, she speedily recovered her complacency, and said, volubility, "I've always heard," she said, and with her little cackling laugh, "that men would be extravagant, especially in some things. There are some things they're fidgety about, and will have just so. Well, well, who has a better right than a well-to-do, four-handed man? Women is to complement the man, and it should be her aim to study the great, shall we say, reason for her being, which is adaptation." And she uttered the word with feeling, assured that Holcroft could not fail of being impressed by it. The poor man was bolting such food as had been prepared in his haste to get away. "Yes," continued the widow, "adaptation is woman's mission, and—" "Really, Mrs. Mumpson, your and Jane's mission this morning will be to get as much butter as possible out of the cream and milk on hand. I'll set the old dog on the wheel and start the churn within half an hour." And he rose with the thought, "I'd rather finish my breakfast on milk and coffee by and by than stand this." And he said, "Please let the coffee be until I come in to show you about taking out and working the butter." The scenes in the dairy need not be dwelt upon. He saw that Jane might be taught, and that she would probably try to do all that her strength permitted. It was perfectly clear that Mrs. Mumpson was not only ignorant of the duties which he had employed her to perform, but that she was also too preoccupied with her talk and notions of gentility ever to learn. He was already satisfied that in inducing him to engage her, Lemuel Weeks had played him a trick, but there seemed no other resource than to fulfill his agreement. With Mrs. Mumpson in the house, there might be less difficulty in securing and keeping a hired girl, who, with Jane, might do the essential work. But the future looked so unpromising that even the strong coffee could not sustain his spirits. The hopefulness of the early morning departed, leaving nothing but dreary uncertainty. Mrs. Mumpson was bent upon accompanying him to town and engaging the girl herself. "There would be great propriety in my doing so," she argued at dinner, "and propriety is something that adorns all the human race. There would be no danger of my getting any of the peculiar females such as you have been afflicted with. As I am to superintend her labors, she will look upon me with respect and humility as she learns from the first to recognize in me a superior on whom she will be dependent for her daily bread. No shiftless hussy would impose upon me. I would bring home, how sweet the word sounds, a model of industry and patient endurance. She would be deferential. She would know her place, too. Everything would go like clockwork in our home. I'll put on my things at once and—" "Excuse me, Mrs. Mumpson. It would not be right to leave Jane here alone. Moreover, I'd rather engage my own help." "But, my dear Mr. Holcroft, you don't realize—" "Men never do realize that you will have a long, lonely ride with a female of unknown antecedents. It'll be scarcely respectable, and respectability should be man and woman's chief aim. Jane is not a timid child, and in an emergency like this, even if she was, she would gladly sacrifice herself to sustain the proprieties of life. Now that your life has begun under new and better auspices, I feel that I ought to plead with you not to cloud your brightening prospects by a thoughtless unregard of what society looks upon as proper. The eyes of the community will now be upon us." "You must excuse me, Mrs. Mumpson. All I ask of the community is to keep their eyes on their own business, while I attend to mine in my own way. The probabilities are that the girl will come out on the stage Monday." And he rose from the dinner table and hastily made his preparations for departure. He was soon driving rapidly away, having a sort of nervous apprehension lest Jane, or the widow, should suddenly appear on the seat beside him. A basket of eggs and some inferior butter, with the burnt-out stove, were in his wagon, and his bank-book was in his pocket. It was with a sinking heart that he thought of making further inroads in his small accumulations. Before he was out of sight, Mrs. Mumpson betook herself to the rocking-chair and began to expatiate on the blindness and obduracy of men in general, and of Mr. Holcroft in particular. "They are all much alike," she complained, "and are strangely neglectful of the proprieties of life. My dear deceased husband, your father, was becoming gradually sensible of my value in guiding him in this respect, and indeed I may add, in all respects. When in the very prime of his expanding manhood he was laid low. Of course my happiness was buried then, and my heart can never throb again. But I have a mission in the world, I feel it, and here is a desolate home bereft of female influence and consolation, and hitherto painfully devoid of respectability. I once called on the late Mrs. Holcroft, and I must say it, I went away depressed by a sense of her lack of ability to develop in her husband those qualities which would make him an ornament to society. She was a silent woman. She lacked mind and ideas. She had seen little of the world and knew not what was swaying people. Therefore her husband, having nothing else to think of, became absorbed in the accumulation of dollars. Not that I object to dollars, they have their proper place, but mine should be fixed on all things. We should take a deep personal interest in our fellow beings, and thus we grow broad. As I was saying, Mr. Holcroft was not developed by his late spouse. He needs awakening, arousing, stimulating, drawing out, and much such as I feel to be my mission. I must be patient. I cannot expect the habits of years to pass away under a different kind of female influence at once." Jane had been stolidly washing and putting away dishes during this partial address to herself and partial soliloquy, but now remarked, "You and me will pass away in a week if you go on as you've begun. I can see it coming. Then where'll we go?" "Your words, Jane, only show that you are an ignorant, short-sighted child. Do you suppose that a woman of my years and experience would make no better provision for the future than a man's changeful mind, a warped and undeveloped mind at that? No, I have an agreement with Mr. Holcroft. I shall be a member of his household for 3 months at least, and long before that he will begin to see everything in a new light. It will gradually dawn upon him that he has been defrauded of proper female influence in society. Now, he is crude. He thinks only of work and accumulating. But when the work is done by a menial female's hands, and his mind is more at rest, there will begin to steal in upon him the cravings of his mind. He will see that material things are not all in all." "Perhaps he will. I don't know what you're talking about. If I was you would learn to work and do things as he wants 'em. That's what I'm going to do. Shall I go now up to his bed and tidy his room?" "I think I will accompany you, Jane, and see that your task is properly performed." "Of course you want to see everything in the room just as I do." "As housekeeper, I should see everything that is under my care. That is the right way to look at the matter." "Well, come and look then." "You are becoming strangely disrespectful, Jane." "Can't help it," replied the girl. "I'm getting mad. We've been elbowed around long as I can remember. At least I've been. And now we're in a place where we've a right to be, and you've nothing but talk, talk, talk when he hates talk. And now you go up to his room and you'll see everything in it, and you could tell him off tomorrow." "Well, you can't see he hates talk and wants something done." "Jane," said Mrs. Mumpson in her most severe and dignified manner, "you are not only disrespectful to your parent, but you are a time-server. What Mr. Holcroft wants is a very secondary matter. What is best for him is the chief consideration. But I have touched on things far above your comprehension. Come, you can make up the bed, and I shall inspect as becomes my station."